Now, Bob Chapman, almost 50 years fighting this, wrote the biggest newsletter for a while till he retired, came back. He joins us now to break this down. But obviously, Bob, the big news is coup d'etat. Pentagon and Obama declare Congress ceremonial. They're now going back on their thing and saying, well, we do have the power to kill citizens, foreign and domestic. We'll go ahead and do that. So, I mean, they're really trying to push torture, secret arrest, all the stuff we know that is the bad guys, and saying it's to fight al-Qaeda when al-Qaeda publicly works for them. Bob Chapman, what is your view on the public statements to Congress that they can hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back, no more, no more, no more? What do you make of this gauntlet being thrown down?
Well, if you go back to the 1960s and 70s, you'll find that we contemplated these kind of things. But we thought that because we had an elected Congress and a president, but particularly Congress, that we would get some cooperation and some help. And we did. And then as things moved into the 90s and then beyond, we started to get less and less. And that's really where we're at today. And what they're saying now is Congress is ceremonial, and as is the U.S. government for that matter. And the UN runs everything, and we take our orders for them. And it's in your face again, and the question is, how do you stop them?
Well, you're right, Bob. And of course, Caesar made the Senate ceremonial. But, I mean, they're there telling them, no, you don't launch war. You don't do anything. You don't have nothing. But they went further. They said the UN gives us the orders, which is what the Supreme Court justices have now been saying. I mean, they're doing this on purpose. They're just acclimating everyone. Now, of course, as you know, Walter Jones in the House and others in the Senate have introduced, and here's the bill. We'll actually put it on screen for people. They've actually introduced to the 112th Congress H.Con.Res 107. So it's House Concurrent Resolution 107, and it's got a Senate bill as well. And it says it's a high crime and that it's treason and that Obama had better seek their approval in future operations. But, you know, what about Libya last year where he said he did it for the UN? I guess they just didn't like the public affront of them coming in and telling them they were ceremonial.
I think you're right, and I also think that they're moving toward much bigger things beyond that. If the UN has the power to tell us what to do, or the government what to do, and they decide that all Americans who have vehicles under, let's say, more than 10 years old, they have to be junked and they have to buy new ones, or everybody who has small arms in the United States has to give them to the government along with the ammunition, and on and on. And that's how they intend to override the U.S. Congress, the Office of the Presidency, and do exactly what they want, because I think up until this point, they've not been able to do it or find an easier way to do it. So here they are decreeing it.
That's right. They're going exactly. They're going right to tyranny now, right to Agenda 21. And what you mentioned, the UN has said in their UNIDIR documents that they want total civilian ban of guns. They've said all the things you're saying. And look at how he uses the EPA to enforce UN edicts. We're already under UN control to a great extent.
That's been borne out as well by having the rules from country to country about things the same, such as contents, how they're spelled out, whether they're in ounces, and things like that, particularly in pertaining to food. And they're working very diligently at that and have been for the last several years. And so those are the kind of things they start with, and then all of a sudden they say all cars have to be made like the Volkswagen whatchamacallit.
Stay there. You're absolutely right. And the UN did the light bulb ban. It's the smoking ban is a UN treaty all over the world. We just pass it locally. Wow. All the Preparations are being made to shut the country down. The last 5-6 years, total continuity agenda between Bush and now Obama, trying to block being able to get your money out even legally. Almost all the big money leaving the United States because they've already sucked it dry. They know what they're going to do. Bob Chapman left the United States because of persecution. The Bushes are down in Paraguay, right on a key smuggling route with hundreds of thousands of acres. So they've done a great job, and they're just going to leave us behind with a giant paramilitary army. There's a new article at Infowars.com by Steve Watson, who's been on fire lately. Maryland cops to be trained on U.S. Constitution after illegally arresting protesters. Pro-life demonstrators, including teenage girls, were strip-searched, shackled by officers who said they could rot in cells. State police in Maryland have been ordered to undergo training on the First and Fourth Amendments following an 2008 incident during which 18 pro-lifer protesters were arrested, shackled, and strip-searched, including underage girls. And we have links to all the mainstream news articles admitting it, but they think it's good, though. It's like, well, this is good. The incident occurred when members of the group Defend Life peacefully demonstrated on public property in Hartford County, August 2008, as part of their Face the Truth campaign. Around a dozen state officers arrived on the scene and told the protesters they did not have a permit. Again, a permit's to block roads, folks, but they tricked the cops into thinking it's everything. They think, you have to have a permit for a gun, too, and would be arrested unless they packed up and left. When asked what specific ordinance the demonstrators needed a permit to protest, one officer responded, "I'm not giving it to you at 5 o'clock at night. I'm a state police officer. I know the law. That's it." And it was captured on film where this all happened. It's at Infowars.com. And it's just really creepy, man. I've had it happen in Austin where I'm videotaping something. The cop pulls up over and over again. It's happened to Mike Hansen. Gets out, walks over and says, "Turn your camera off." And they go, "I'm going to arrest you. It's a lawful order." And I go, "No, it isn't. I'm not just some idiot that doesn't know my rights. I'm going to sue you." "Oh, what, you don't like cops?" "No, I like living in a free country. I'm not," okay? And I've been filming police at a checkpoint 200 yards away, knowing they'd come over. And I'm like, "You're interfering with us." "No, I'm not. I'm 200 yards away." "I'm going to arrest you." "Go ahead, next." "Oh, what, are the Serbs going to invade?" That's on video at a highway checkpoint, and they shut down I-35. And I go, "No, you're invading. What is this, a federal grant to do this?" "How do you know that?" "Because I know how they're trying to destroy America, officer. I've got the data. I want you to live in a free country, too. So stop. First it's intimidation, then it's laugh at me. Why don't you just be an American? I know a bunch of crooks run the government, but can't you be smart enough to not be mad at some pro-lifers and just, I'm sorry, I'm ranting, Bob Chapman, but there are some good signs happening. The TSA had a video blocked exposing them. There was outcry, and the video got put back up yesterday. So we are seeing victories, Bob Chapman.
Yes, we are. And when you see those kinds of things happen to people when they're dragged off to jail, going to jail is one thing. It's certainly intimidating. I know, I've been there. And but what is worse is the mental turmoil and the scars that you're putting on the people. It's pure terrorism. There's no better word for it. And they're trying to terrorize the public into allowing them, law enforcement, military, whatever, to tell you what to do, how to do it, whether you like it or not, whether it's the law or not. And if you argue, down to the dungeon and you're naked. And this is the kind of tactics that they're taught in order to make people submissive.
And they beta tested it all on pro-lifers. I've got the film in my martial law documentary where they would break pro-lifers' arms for just sitting on the sidewalk and call it pain compliance. Hardcore, life-threatening torture. But it's not torture because they call it pain compliance, Bob.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Federal Reserve saying we're going to have a currency swap with the European Central Bank when in fact it's a loan and it's illegal from both ends. It's the same nomenclature, the changing of terms, the pseudo-intellectuality of it all.
Well, that's like the state police called like 5 different people the day before we went down to cover them. They must have our phones tapped or something with these gunboats they've got. And I kept talking to different members, and they kept the state police kept calling, going, Alex Jones isn't on the air on this station, is he? He's a liar. You need to do something. They're like, no, he's on the radio here, but technically he doesn't work there. Well, no. Well, good. And when our guys get there to interview him, they're like, you're a liar. You're not on KLBJ. You don't work there. And it was like some weird game to like make us bad and to say we're liars because we want to cover them getting all these machine gun boats. Just bizarre how they operate. Stay there, Bob. I want to get into the economy, where it's going, what you think people should do to try to get this impeachment going against Obama. Because I was always saying Obama's a puppet, but now he has been given dictator power. It's illegitimate, but he's actually taking it. And to go in and slap the senators around, man, they must have some dirt on them. Wow. I want to get Bob's take on that. The Dave Mustaine thing's coming up. I'll also tell you about, well, I'll tell you about when we come back. You know, I tell you, Bob, freedom is getting more and more popular. Again, I don't do this to brag about myself. Neither do you when you talk about all the contacts you get, most of them off record. But when I go to a rock concert now, you know, just 3 years ago, I go to a rock concert, maybe every 10 people would stop me. I went behind the scenes and like the roadies for 3 different bands, like half of them were listeners. I heard the show today, and then I was out in the crowd, and like every third person was a listener. It was just incredible. I mean, liberty is getting popular. I think that's why the globalists are trying to accelerate their whole program.
As you said, Alex, we're breathing down their neck, and I don't know what to do about it. They're losing the info war, and we just got to keep on hammering away until we break them down and take them over and take over the financial system so they can't do what they're doing and using it as a base of power.
You know what I'm worried about, Bob, is them trying to stage a false flag. I really see that being one of the only ace cards they've got right now.
And you're right, and there's very little we can do to control that unless we find out about it ahead of time. And I don't know whether we can do that or not.
I want to get into the technicals on the economy, what's going on with gold and silver, other commodities going up like oil, what's happening in the euro. What's the latest development since we talked?
Well, it's supposedly the price of oil is selling where it's at because of the disruptions in the Middle East, which have been caused by the United States government and others in embargoing the usage of the financial system as well as the sale of the oil of Iran. And Iran sells their oil now in currencies other than dollars. And you're into the same fight over the petrodollar as you were with Gaddafi saying, I want a golden dinar. Or Saddam Hussein, who said, I'm going to sell oil in non-dollar currencies, and he did for a couple of years, and he ended up at the end of the rope. These people are vicious animals, and they're going to continue to press and press and press. And I think really, if they can pull it off, what you're afraid of, the false flag operation, would be something, if they don't screw it up, that could really impress upon people that they need government. And so hopefully they can't pull that off.
What's the big trigger you're looking for in the economy that could accelerate the collapse? More and more of the system is admitting that we're really in a depression, but that, well, you know, the Federal Reserve's come out and said we're headed towards the edge of that cliff. Well, of course, they put us on that trajectory.
Well, that's right. And I think the catalyst, although it seems mundane after several years, is going to be Europe. This deal that was made today, which refinances, bails out again Greece, is a loser. In January, revenues were up like 4.5% for the government, and spending was up plus 8.5%. So they're not making any headway, and they're not going to make any headway, and they don't care about making headway. And so that deal is going to fall asunder. And they know that. And a very important thing to happen last week is in Karlsruhe, Germany, the Federal District Court, Federal National Court, I'll call it that rather than go into German, they said that this new vehicle to finance these financially unsound countries, which had previously been under something called the EFSF, the Germans and others want to use this new ESM in order to do that by rolling EFSF into ESM. They can't do it. The German court says that is illegal under the Constitution. So they either have to pass an amendment or something, or they're not going to be able to allocate funds to ESM. And of course, part of ESM was even more austerity. I mean, don't the Germans think for 1 second, when you have austerity down the road, the people who you're exporting to, that they're going to have less of an economy because of the austerity, and that means you're not going to be able to export as much to them as you did before, which means their economy is going down.
There's a chain reaction.
Going down. Exactly.
All right.
And so that is a nightmare. Believe me, they're no closer now than they were 3 years ago.
All right, I want to shift gears into Coney 2012 in just a minute and get your take on this. I'm going to give you a briefing here, Bob, and get your analysis on it. But first, I want to just ask you briefly what you think we should do to try to resist this open UN, Pentagon, globalist banker coup d'etat. I mean, they admit in Time magazine that it's a banker coup. You know, here's the article. Regime change in Europe, do Greece and Italy amount to a banker's coup? And they say yes, but the bankers know how to run it. Congressman Walter Jones and senators have introduced the H-Con Res 107, or House Res 107, and they say it's a high crime, and that if he doesn't reverse himself, they're going to initiate impeachment. Well, that needs to happen when Congress said you got to get permission for Libya, and he said, no, I have the UN. Just because the Pentagon came in and disgraced you, you already disgraced yourself passing the NDAA. You already, so yeah, if you want to come to your senses, of course they came in front of the world, said Congress has no authority, and they're ceremonial, just like Caesar did in 49 BC. But I think everybody should call the Judiciary Committee over impeachment and say, look, the whole world knows what's going on here. You either tell those traitors over at the Pentagon, because the military's waking up, that they better come out and say, yes, our commander-in-chief is the president during war, and Congress is in charge of the president. I want to hear that chain of command right now, or this is a coup that's been successful. This is a big deal. We can't just take this sitting down. We've been trained to accept so much. Nobody put up with this. Coups are one thing, but foreign coups through puppets, nobody puts up with that. You think Mexico would put up with the president openly saying he takes his orders from the U.S., even if it's true that the big banks give them? I mean, they would riot in a minute and overthrow the government. The police and military would walk out. And that's a third world police state. I mean, do we have any basic honor? Anything? Here's the number, 202-225-3951, 202-225-3951, Judiciary Committee. Lamar Smith's the head of it, 202-225-4236. Call the general. Switchboard if you want. But the point is, we need to take action on this now. I mean, what else can we do, Bob? I guess get the articles off Infowars.com out to everybody. Coup d'etat, Pentagon and Obama declare Congress ceremonial. I mean, what do you think we should do, Bob?
Well, all of the people who are on the air, such as myself, should put the word out, of course. And all of you people who are blogging on the Internet, you should do the same thing. And all of you people out there, give encouragement to these people who step forward and expose what's being done here. And also, it doesn't hurt, short note to every congressman, and just tell them, we know what you're doing, and we want that reversed, and because it's unconstitutional. And if you don't, you're going to have an awful lot of people mad at you.
Very well said. All right, now on this next subject, I have done research over the years on the Lord's Resistance Army in Uganda and the general Congolese Congo area, and I've interviewed political scientists, experts on the subject just to double-check my research, and I'm not saying that Joseph Kony is a good guy, but he has a few thousand followers, maybe 500 ragtag troops. He does use child soldiers because in the area the kids just starve. So it's always been that way in Africa and many other areas that are primitive in their technological development. The kids either starve or they're brought in and trained as soldiers. I mean, in the old days, they had 9-year-olds they would grab off the streets in England and force into military service. I mean, that's as old as civilization, when civilization was more primitive. The point is that Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, all of them, Kim Kardashian, all these Hollywood people, George Clooney, are behind this Kony 2012. And the symbol is a donkey and elephant together saying one thing we can all agree on. Well, this is what we predicted in the Obama deception. It is an African invasion of Africa, the beachhead in Libya, murdering, mass murder there, destabilization using al-Qaeda. The current leader of Uganda was connected in the last 20 years to other groups that have been involved in more than 7 million killed. So they're literally comparing him to Hitler, this new guy, Kony, who's like a nobody, like a Beverly Hillbilly or something. They've got Hitler next to bin Laden, next to Kony. He's the new Hitler. And this video's gotten 50 million views in 5 days. It's being promoted by every globalist outfit. Bill Gates is promoting it, who openly says he wants to reduce the population of Africa. And they're targeting school kids, and they're flooding us saying you've got to stand for the children that are being kidnapped by Kony and turned into military minions. Well, that's standard all across the entire continent. And goes on in many other continents. But the point is, it's purely, in fact, they say in these news reports, they wanted to make him the villain. They don't even hide that. So it's just like they use Remington's paintings to claim the Spanish were slaughtering people in Cuba in 1898. And the head of Hearst Publishing said, give me the images, I'll give you a war. So this is pure war propaganda, and they've now got the whole anti-war left calling for war in Libya, calling for it in Syria, calling for it in Iran, and calling for a AFRICOM invasion by U.S. forces, as Tarpley predicted 3.5 years ago in Obama deception, in the Congo-wide area. And you watch, if this gets kicked off, genocide, and I'll have to have trendies lecturing me on how great they are because they're going to get some little ragtag guy in one tiny area who's a joke. I mean, it's just, they go, here's the bad man, invade. People are like, kill. I mean, it's like Saddam and the baby incubators. I'm going to come back from break and get Bob's take on this. But people kept calling me about this the last 2 days. I looked into it, and they're targeting 10, 12, 13, 14-year-olds. And they've got all these little kids spamming the web with it, and people crying and getting donations for money for the UN, just like they had blood diamond movies about there's African countries where they mine their own diamonds. They have child labor. It's the UN and De Beers that's running around enslaving people and doing all this. And a blood diamond's a money that the Rothschilds don't get. I mean, literally, they use this humanitarian cover. It's pure propaganda. The West wants Africans dead, and this will be the pretext to go in there and kill them. Of course, I forgot my biggest point on the whole Kony situation. This is all about legitimizing the International Criminal Court. Anybody that resists the New World Order, they had that 5-nation group of commandos led by the U.S. try to go in and kill this guy just because he's one little resistor. And now he's being used as the poster boy to have full-on invasion against all sorts of others like him, Muslim and Christian on both sides, and even animist, to invade the whole area. Bob Chapman, I mean, we've got the West that loves killing 1 million Iraqis, loves doing all this, and now we have Kim Kardashian, all the big liberals, and George Clooney with Bill Gates. And I noticed on YouTube, and people got snapshots of this, within live time, it went up like 1 million views in an hour when they launched it 5 days ago. Well, everybody knows, even when we've had stuff with hundreds of thousands of views or anybody else, it says 301 or 306. While it caches, then waits half a day before the numbers start updating. But you can always tell when it probably hasn't had 50 million views. I mean, YouTube is heavily involved with Obama. Google that owns it is. What's your take on them inventing a new boogeyman and saying, he's Hitler, he's bin Laden, we've now got to invade Africa?
Well, there's a long history of this, especially after the years which began the decolonization of Africa. And I lived in Africa for several years, mostly in southern Africa, which would be South Africa, and Rhodesia, which is now Zimbabwe. And I spent a lot of time in Mozambique and Angola, Zambia, which used to be northern Rhodesia. But as you say, there aren't many jobs around. And it's pretty easy to recruit people to get involved in wars or disruptions. And they don't care whether they get killed or not. They get really very little to live for. And that's been going on for a long time. But the bottom line here is that usually what has happened is an outside group like BP or Exxon or De Beers or whatever, they're behind the whole thing. And they take a fellow like the one you've been mentioning, and they round up a bunch of people for him and give them guns and say, go off in that direction up there and raise heck, and because you're supposed to do that. And they do it.
Well, let me expand on this. We're not even saying that this Coney guy's a good guy. He's literally a nobody out there. It's an excuse to bring in AFRICOM and this huge U.S. global buildup for a new colonialism publicly. And they've got the left now, who usually is anti-war but's been silent, is cheering for war. And they could care less about the children. It's, oh, the invisible children. Oh, Coney's like Hitler. Oh, we care so much. And it's all about selling people on going in and carrying out globalist eugenics in Africa. I mean, Bill Gates has said he wants them dead. And it's Bill Gates. I mean, it is sick. Isn't that sick, Bob?
It certainly is. And, you know, those poor people have enough problems just surviving. And I know I had a business there. We had 300 people working for us, and I didn't even need half the people. I used to hire them just so they'd have a job. What was funny is every once in a while one would disappear, and about 2 or 3 months later he'd come back. And he'd say, I'm ready for work, boss. And I said, really? Where you been? He said, out in the tribal trust land. I said, well, I don't have any place for you right now. Why did you go away and come back? He said, oh, it was time for me to see my wives. So this is the kind of mentality that you're dealing with. It's very rudimentary. It's too bad, but that's the way it is. And that's how they recruit people.
Yeah, that's what's going on. Ask yourselves, what are you doing in this time of great challenge? What are you doing to unlock minds?